Hello, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí, the creator of The Art of Freedom for Musicians. In this video, I'm going to be talking about pain. Music should not hurt, and there are way too many musicians that experience pain on a regular basis. Even musicians who don't have pain regularly, or they wouldn't say they have chronic pain, but they're uncomfortable most of the time in their bodies. And of course, there's also psychological pain, and there are a lot of musicians that experience anxiety and depression and performance anxiety. But in this video, I'm not going to talk so much about those more mental, psychological aspects. Today, I really want to talk about physical pain. And there's just so much you can do to avoid the physical pain. And if you're already experiencing it, it is possible to find your way out. So I want to be here to help you. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jennifer Roig-Francolí again, and I am a specialist in helping musicians with excess pain, excess tension, and performance anxiety, all kinds of those psychophysical issues that get in the way of your best performance. I'm a professional musician myself, have been a violinist my whole life, and I continue to perform. And I'm also a double certified Alexander Technique teacher. So I've been helping musicians for many years. I was on the faculty of the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music and at Xavier University. I do a lot of traveling around. I give workshops, and I mainly teach online now. So I give private lessons in the Alexander Technique, and I also teach courses and classes. So if you're curious about that, you can find out about that later, and I can tell you where to find things. But for now, I just need to talk to you about what the warning signs are so that I can give you some tools to help you along your way so that you can enjoy your musical journey more and with less or no pain, okay? So I want to give you some of the signs and things that you can look out for, and you've got to heed those warning signs. Okay, so I'm going to put that up there. You've got to heed the warning signs. So that's enough. I don't need to have that up there the whole time, but I wanted you to see that. Besides, I think those banners are kind of cool. So I like playing around with them. Okay, what are those 3 warning signs? Well, there are so many warning signs, it was hard to pick 3, honestly, but I wanted to keep this short and simple. But the way I'm going to approach this today is, as all of my teaching is, it's infused with the Alexander Technique perspective. Although I have like a very big, broad view of the Alexander Technique as it fits into my experience as a musician. That's why I call it the art of freedom. But the Alexander Technique has helped me to understand and see and pinpoint problems that my students are having. And a lot of it has to do, well, actually, let me start here. Alexander is a holistic technique. So we're always looking at the whole person. And for me, I like to include the mind, the body, soul, and spirit, and of course, emotions are part of that too. So those are what I'm going to talk about today. Before I dive into my material, though, I really want to welcome everybody here who's showing up. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it will be useful for you. I'm seeing Angel, hello, and Joe, and Kay, and Vencha, and Annette. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to share this information with you, all of you. And it's nice to see familiar friends coming back. And I do hope to be having this live video that I was doing weekly, and then I was moving and things kind of got in the way. But my intention is to show up here as often as I can on Thursdays at 2 o'clock. So I will be here again next week, by the way. But you can watch these live videos. There's a whole archive of them on my Facebook page in case you want to see more of them or if you missed some. Okay, so I have, by the way, if you have questions or comments, I love to get your comments and your emojis. And please share this video because This is important information. There are too many people suffering, and if you have musician friends who think they might be going in a direction that's not healthy, send them my way, and hopefully they can get some useful information. Okay, so the very first thing is to check in with your whole self. We are very good at compartmentalizing who we are. You've got your musician self, you've got your parental self, or you're being a child or a sibling or a friend, or you've got your work mode, you've got your home mode, and we're very good at separating different parts of who we are. This work, The Art of Freedom and the Alexander Technique, is all about looking at the whole person and integrating those elements that I talked about: mind, body, soul, spirit, or however you like to think of yourself. So I thought I would organize this little talk for you by addressing those three, more or less three, elements of the self. Okay, so Alexander himself wrote in his first book, Man's Supreme Inheritance, he wrote, and I love that he wrote this, I think about this a lot, he was adamant that the mental attitude must come first. Okay, so we're going to start there. Now, warning signs, there's so many of them having to do with the mental outlook. So I have 3 magic phrases. I'm going to just give them to you right now so you've got them. They are: I am free, I don't have to do anything right now to be me, and right now I have time and space within myself to be me. First one, I am free. That also means I'm free to be me. So if there's a sense of freedom to be yourself and have the experience you're having that all too often we forget, because there's so many pressures coming at us from outside. If you're a musician who performs at all, even if the performance is for a teacher or for a friend, performance can be stressful. There are people who eat it up. They love it, and they don't have any problem with performing. It's not stressful for them. But for many of us, the idea of performing is stressful. So when you pay attention to those 3 magic phrases, just take a look, maybe take stock with yourself right now in regard to performance. Do you feel free when you're performing? Or do you feel constricted or restricted or controlled? Like if you're in an orchestra, do you feel less free because you have to fit into the group and do what the conductor wants? Or when you're in a lesson, do you feel less free because your teacher has very specific ways that you need to do things? How do you feel free or not free in your performance or in your practicing? Okay, so that's a question for you to ponder. And then how much stuff is on your to-do list that you believe you have to do? How much work do you feel you have to do with your instrument? How long do you have to practice? How much repertoire do you have to learn? There's so many ways we impose pressure on ourselves by believing that there are things we have to do. Maybe you're a string player and you believe you have to improve your vibrato, and there's a lot you have to do or practice to get the vibrato you want. Or maybe you have difficulty memorizing things, and that stresses you out. So one of the warning signs is I'm approaching it from a mental attitude direction. So if you're noticing that you are mentally overloaded or stressed or feeling pressured, or you just don't feel comfortable psychologically because of that pressure or that stress, whether you feel like it's coming from outside of you or you feel like you're doing it to yourself with negative thinking, being stressed, feeling overwhelmed, all those things are putting literal stress on your body, because you aren't just putting stress on your psyche, okay? It's all connected. Mind, body, soul, spirit is one thing. So if you're feeling stressed mentally, I guarantee you're putting stress on your physical self as well. You may not be feeling it, but I'm warning you, this is warning number one. If you're feeling mental, psychological stress or pressure in your life, you are more at risk for developing physical symptoms. You just cannot separate the two. So that's the number one big one. Check out your mental outlook, your attitude, and your priorities, and just get to know yourself in that sense. And if you're finding anything that is a little questionable, take it as a red flag warning to start using those 3 magic phrases. That's a good place to start. Ponder them, wonder, what do they mean to you? How can you bring those into your life? In the sense that I am free, that you don't have to do anything to be yourself right now, and that you have plenty of time, even if it's just 30 seconds. You have time to stop, okay? Stopping, pausing, taking stock, that's a magical cure. If you're a big doer, you need to learn how to slow down. I promise your body's gonna love it, okay? So that's number one. Number 2, red flag warning. We're now going to approach this question from the body's perspective, okay? So what do you notice in your body? How many of you are out there? Actually, before I go on to number 2, let me just back up for a moment because I do want to get your input. I am really curious to hear how you're responding to these ideas. And if we go back to number 1 and the mental outlook, let me just get a kind of a show of hands or thumbs up emojis. If this makes sense, just let them fly by. Give me a yes. Give me a little comment if this makes sense to you or you understand how specifically your mental attitude can, when left unchecked, when it's going kind of out of control or over control, how that can be putting stress on your body that can eventually lead to pain down the road. Does that make sense? Just give me your response. I'm seeing Joe has a thumbs up. Good, I'm glad this is making sense. Yes, Angel says mental attitude is key. So I'm curious, yes, and Danielle says, of course. So if there's any, does anybody out there have a common like mental stressor, or even if it's just one word, throw it out there. I would love to get a flurry of words to describe that number 1 red flag warning. Yeah, I'm really curious to see what words you throw out there to describe the mental psychological pressure and stress. What does it feel like when that red flag goes off and you hear that warning siren, time to slow down? What are you noticing in yourself mentally to set yourself off and make yourself pay attention? You can respond to that question in your own time. If you're watching the replay, all of your comments are totally worth it. And I do look at these later. That's why I always ask for a lot of feedback, because I enjoy going back later to see what other people have to say to add to this. Good, they're starting to come in. I'm getting anxious, overwhelmed, fear. Yes, right. Joe says, used to be overwhelmed. Yes, Joe's been working with me for a while, and gosh, the progress is amazing. How you are just finding your way to effortless music making through clear intention and practicing the things that we're working on and other wonderful skills that you've picked up through mindfulness training and things like that. I think it's fantastic. Danielle says, sometimes I have so much to do, so much of it you're not doing. Right. So when those thoughts kind of take over your brain, that's a warning to stop. You got to stop there. And to help you with that, use those 3 magic phrases. Okay, great. Now, moving on. I got a little ahead of myself before, but now we're on to number 2. What do you notice in your body? How many of you would you say that you're really aware of your body in a good way? Not just because it shows you pain, but because you enjoy being in your body? How many of you love your body and are really comfortable in your own skin? Just give me a yes or a no. Are you happy with your body? Are you feeling comfortable in your own skin? That's your question right now. Give me a yes or a no. Curious. A lot of performers are not comfortable with their presence on stage. They're not comfortable with their bodies. And when you're not comfortable with your body, what do? You try to hide. And when you try to hide your body or pretend you are different from how you are, then you're actually increasing tension in your body. And that is a warning. That's the second warning. If you find yourself hiding or shrinking or getting smaller, or maybe you're powering through your day with tension and you know you're like moving too fast through the day and you're like barreling through things and you're slamming doors and you're running everywhere you go, your body is telling you, listen, I'll do this for you, but you are running me ragged. You need to slow down. I need to rest. I need a little more sleep. How many of you are getting enough sleep? I think most people in our culture are not getting enough sleep. So that is another red flag. When your body starts showing up excess tension, exhaustion, stress, like sore shoulders, or sore back, things that are recurring often. If you don't sleep well, you have issues with weight, like eating too much, not eating enough. When those natural bodily functions are kind of out of skew, then that's a warning flag, and you've got to pay attention, because if it's not painful now, it's likely going to show up later, sooner or later, as pain. And you just don't want that, because who wants to make music when they're in pain? It takes so much of the joy and the fun out of it if you're in pain, right? So, does anybody have anything showing up in their bodies? Danielle? Actually, maybe it's Daniele. I see there's an accent on there when I look more closely. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Daniele, it's a beautiful name, either way. She says it sounds like me. Kay says more than in the past. You're more comfortable with your body now than you were. That's wonderful, Kay. I'm really happy to hear that. And Angel is comfortable. That's great. Yes. Oh, Joe says my dog is happier too. Yay for your dog. I love it. So many of my students have animals. That's great. Yes. So I'm curious if anybody has any red flags showing up for them in their bodies right now. Does anybody not get enough sleep or have issues with food, too much, too little, cravings? Maybe you have soreness. Where does the soreness show up? Another way that it shows up is if you are over practicing. Does anybody out there over practice? I don't, but I like the opposite. I under practice. Give it a thumbs up or a yes if you ever over practice and your body tells you, but you don't listen to it. Okay, anybody out there do that? Put an O for over practicing if you ever over practice and you don't listen to the signals your body is giving you to tell you that you need to stop and take a break. I bet there are going to be a lot of O's showing up. Barbara says she gets sore shoulders and upper arms. Yeah. Now, I was performing with my group Apollo's Fire up in Cleveland last week. We're a Baroque orchestra. I play modern violin, regular traditional violin, as well as Baroque violin. And I go back and forth. And I don't really practice a lot in between. I practice for performances. Something that happens for me often with Apollo's Fire is that I don't practice that much, and then I practice maybe for a few days before the first rehearsal. Then I go up to Cleveland. We all come from around the world, and we meet in Cleveland for 3 intensive rehearsal days. So the first couple days are 6-hour rehearsal days. And see, I'm not used to 6-hour playing days, even by myself or ever. I never practice that much because I feel like you can get so much more done when you are mentally and physically alert and efficient. So I teach people how to get a lot done in very little time. And that's what I do. But the problem is that I show up for those days and then all of a sudden I have to play the violin for 6 hours. I get sore. And that's kind of overuse, but it's my choice because I want to play in that group and it's only every few months anyway. So I just live with the soreness for a few days and then I'm fine afterwards. But if I were doing that on a regular basis, I would absolutely have to do things differently because I would not be able to keep up with a 6-hour playing schedule on a regular basis. I don't think most people can. And that's why if you look at the research, it's like 80+% of orchestra musicians are in pain. There's a lot of research. Most musicians, most professional musicians are in pain. And it makes me really sad. That's why I do the work I do, because it's avoidable. It's totally preventable, and people just need to have the knowledge and the skills. Alexander technique is the best way I know to integrate your mental outlook with what you're doing with your body, to become more and more conscious of what's actually happening. And then you have specific tools you can use on the spot and instantly to effect changes in yourself for the better. So that's enough. I'm not going to say any more about number 2, unless anybody else, let me see if there are any other comments. Yeah, Angel says 6 hours too much. I'm with you. It's just the way it works out in that group because we only have a few days and we come in from all over the world and got to learn the stuff. But if I were the director, I would do it a little differently. We'd take more breaks. We would maybe have more shorter rehearsals, but that's just me. I'm not in control of that. So, number 3, you're probably waiting for number 3. So we've looked at the mind, we've looked at the body, and now let's approach it from emotions and soul and spirit. And I kind of put all of those 3 things together. For me, they're not exactly synonymous, but they kind of go together. I do like to think about soul and spirit. I know not everybody thinks that way. So if that's not you, just let's talk about emotions, okay? If you are a believer in soul and spirit, that's great. This is just going to enhance what I'm saying. I personally think of spirit as free, just the way it is. And so that's not actually, I don't see spirit as part of the warning signs, but I just didn't want to exclude that because spirit is actually part of the healing process. But again, not everybody wants to go there and you may think it's just baloney, and that's fine. But let's talk about the emotions because I think we can all agree emotions are real and they are chemical, they are in the brain, they're in the psyche, they're in your whole energetic self. So you cannot ignore your emotions. So here is your 3rd warning sign. If you are not listening to yourself, if you are not being present to your emotions when they show up and you're kind of blocking them, or you're like saying, oh, I'll deal with that later when you get upset, and you just power on through your day, and you don't stop and acknowledge your emotions, and you don't give yourself the time you need to process difficult emotions or to heal relationships that you have with others, starting with the relationship you have with yourself. If you're not taking the time to do that and you're just kind of you're procrastinating on that, it's like you know you need to do it, but you have too much other stuff to do, you may start to sense that your spirit, your emotions, your soul starts to feel kind of heavy. And there's something that's not quite right with your life. Maybe you start to look at your life and you feel a little bit sad because it's not the way you want it to be, or you're not achieving the goals you want to be achieving. I put that all into that 3rd category where something just doesn't feel right and you're not full of joyous energy that you just want to share who you are with the world with exuberance and enthusiasm, that's a warning, okay? Because I believe that we are made free and joyful, and if we're not in touch with that, then there's some work that we need to do. And I'm putting this in here as a warning sign because if you don't take care of that soul, spirit, emotional aspect of yourself, it's going to show up. Your system is going to start making it more extreme, and it's going to solidify, it's going to harden and into pain to get your attention. Most of us are motivated very easily by pain. If you're in pain, you're like, I don't want to be in pain, what should I do? And you do something about it. Now, if you're in a very subtle, emotional kind of not feeling that great, you may not be so motivated to do something about it. But I'm warning you, if you don't pause, take some time, just take a break and carve out some time. Like put it in your schedule to take care of your emotional state. Maybe do some journaling. Maybe do just, if you pray, take some time, pray, be with yourself and your higher self or your deep inner wisdom and listen. Get quiet, ask yourself questions, wonder about things. You don't have to find answers, but you do need to do the deep questioning work to find out, what you don't even, like I said, you don't even need to find out. You don't need answers, but you need to open yourself up to wondering. You need to open up to asking the questions about your life that are going to start bringing things up to the surface, because that's where you can heal them. You don't even have to work at healing them. You just need to expose them to the air, so to speak, right? So I think journaling is great. Just write whatever comes to your mind. You don't have to solve any problems, just get it out, because you're clearing your system of emotional stuff just by writing it. And if you're afraid that someone might read it, write it on a piece of scrap paper and burn it, or drip it up and flush it down the toilet, right? But get it out of your system. You've got to clean your system out of emotional stuff, cobwebs. It's like you have to do a deep cleaning, and then your energy can flow. When your energy is flowing, because one, your mental outlook and priorities and attitude are on, they're healthy, okay? When you're paying attention to your body and you're listening to it and you're not pushing it around and abusing it like so much of us do, when you stop, do things more slowly and really listen to your body, when you give yourself the time and space to clear emotional stuff, then you're really taking care of yourself, and your body is going to respond with energy and flow and joy, and that's when you can make great music. A lot of people play in pain and still play really well because that's how they've learned how to play their instruments. But I'm here to tell you that's not the best way. You do not need to be suffering. Artists do not need to suffer. Artists get to enjoy life too, sometimes even more, because we're sensitive and we feel things deeply. So if this makes sense to you, I would love to get your feedback, even if you're watching the replay. I'm just going to check the comments before I sign off. I see it's almost half an hour, and that's really kind of my limit. I can talk forever, but I like to try to keep these shorter. Joe says, used to be that every practice session included extreme frustration and anger. And that was not helpful and not motivating. And I'm so happy you're turning that around, Joe. And I'm sure your body thanks you for it. And I bet you're not in pain. So that's fantastic. Angel says, oh, yes, it makes sense. Yes, I am so glad it makes sense. Great. Anybody else have any comments? Just throw them out there. Just even write yes if this makes sense. And these 3 warning signs are clicking for you. If you know any other musicians, beginners, professionals, doesn't matter, any other musicians who aren't perfect, send this their way. We are all potentially going in a direction towards pain, and we're all potentially going in a direction towards freedom and flow. So if you know any musicians at all, I feel that anybody could benefit from the things that I've been teaching here, and I would love it if you would share this with people or in other Facebook groups or anybody. Like if you have students, if you're a teacher, share this with your students. Share this with your teacher if you have a teacher, and maybe they will thank you for it. Maybe they will get something out of it. So thank you everybody so much for being here, and thank you for watching the replay if you couldn't be here live. I want to leave you with one thing more. Get support. Okay, no man is an island, no woman is an island. Don't try to do everything yourself. Teachers are great. Teachers sometimes are also imposing stress on us. Get support from a community of like-hearted people, other musicians like you. If you're not a member of my Musicians Mind Body Practice Tribe, it's there for you. It is free, and I would love to have you join. So here's the link. You can copy that down, or I think there's probably a link at the top of this post or in the description. Come on over and join my group and bring your friends. Okay, the more the merrier. We talk about things like this all the time, and I do a free Alexander Technique practice session with my group where you can just watch the live video and do an actual practice with me. I will teach you the first etude, first Alexander etude that is incredibly powerful. A lot of you on here already know it. But come join the group and you can do it with me live on Saturdays or with the replays. And it's here to help. I'm here to help you. So if you've got issues or questions, just come to the group and post them, or message me if you want a lesson or want to take a class or something and learn more. You know where to find me. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to finish now and see you next Thursday if you can make it at 2 p.m. Eastern, just like today. So happy practicing. Take care of yourself and lots of love. Bye-bye.